Elite Facts presents
7 creepy films you need to check out this Halloween.
7.
The Scars of Dracula. Obviously, this is nowhere near as good as the original Bela Lugosi film from 1931 or the 1958 Dracula film from Hammer, but it's still a great film to watch this time of the year. Christopher Lee's portrayal of Dracula is nothing short of fantastic. In our opinion, his performance is on par with that of Lugosi from the original Universal monster films. This film revolves around the resurrection of Count Dracula, who once again spreads his evil from his mountaintop castle. When libertine Paul Carlson disappears one night, his more sober brother Simon and his girlfriend trace him to the area, discovering a terrified populace. Thrown out of the inn, they make their way, like Paul before them, towards the sinister castle and its host. Again, it's not as good as the 1931 original or the 1958 Hammer reboot, but it's still a great watch on Halloween.
6.
Clive Barker's Hellraiser. Stephen King once said, "I have seen the future of horror, and his name is Clive Barker." When you've been praised by one of the most influential horror writers of our time, you know you're doing something right. Hellraiser came out during a period when the slasher genre was just starting to die out, and most slasher films were seen as cheesy, brutal, predictable comedies that weren't scary at all. Now, technically, Hellraiser isn't really a slasher film per se, but a lot of people tend to think of it as one because of its dominant male antagonist. When Hellraiser was released, it raised the bar of what a horror film should be. Although it's still a pretty gruesome film, it goes above and beyond to really freak the audience out, and its dark and somber tone really sets the mood. The whole thing starts when a guy named Frank opens up this thing called the Puzzle Box, summoning the Cenobites who, quote, tear his soul apart. After being left the house in his will, Frank's brother and his family move in, and after Frank's brother accidentally cuts his hand when carrying something upstairs, the blood drips onto the floor where Frank met his demise, and it resurrects him. After his brother's wife, Claire, discovers him in the basement, she is then asked by Frank to bring him more blood so that he can be whole again. The best thing about this film is that Pinhead and the rest of the Cenobites don't even show up until maybe like the last 20 minutes of the film. Yet the film manages to entertain the viewer for the entire runtime. That's how strong the characters and plot are in this film. Now, us trying to explain the film isn't going to do it any justice. If you have a strong stomach, definitely check this movie out. Fun fact, did you know that the producers of Hellraiser wanted to make Pinhead more comedic, like Freddy Krueger, in order to make him more marketable? Thank God they didn't do that.
5.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Okay, so we were torn about whether to include Part 3 on this list or the original film from 1984, but we figured we'd go with this one since it's a lot like the first film, but with a bigger budget and a much bigger plot. But don't let that discourage you from watching the original film because that one's fantastic too. Anyway, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is exactly how a sequel should be done. Not only is it a solid continuation from the previous films in the series, it also made Freddy Krueger a bona fide star. Now, sure, you could also blame this film for being the catalyst for Freddy turning into nothing but a comedy act by the time he appeared in Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, but in this film, it was just the right balance of both humor and fear. In the first film, Freddy was only a threat to a small group of high school students. In this sequel, because he's haunted a number of kids' nightmares over the previous years leading up to this film, Freddy is a threat to the entire town of Springwood. Without spoiling any major plot points about this film, it follows Kristen Parker, who's committed to an asylum. In this asylum, she joins a group of similarly troubled teens who've all had similar experiences with Freddy Krueger. One of the doctors there is Nancy Thompson, the main heroine from the original film, who had battled Freddy some years before. As expected, Nancy is the only one in the hospital who believes the kids when they claim that it's Freddy Krueger in their nightmares that's causing them all the emotional and physical torment. This leads the group of troubled teens to team up to take Freddy down once and for all. Definitely check this one out this Halloween. 4. The Cabin in the Woods. Okay, so here's a recent horror film that's highly underrated and nothing short of fantastic. The Cabin in the Woods lampoons horror movie conventions while still packing in plenty of thrills of its own. Now, the idea of a hulking family of zombies sounds pretty ridiculous, and something you'd expect to see in a horror comedy. But in this film, this family of zombies is just downright disturbing. When 5 college friends arrive at a remote forest cabin for a vacation, little do they know or expect the horrors that await them. One by one, the youths fall victim to backwoods zombies. But there's another factor at play. Now, we won't spoil anything, but that's pretty much the summary. Now, we should make this extremely clear. This is not just another zombie film. It's so much more than that, and we simply can't recommend it to you enough.
3.
Coraline. Yeah, bet you weren't expecting this one, but we've included this movie because we felt like we've been ignoring the younger demographic on this list. So here you go, a film that's supposedly for kids. Sit down with the family and enjoy the madness. So yeah, Coraline is quite a freaky film for kids, but we know several adults who are also creeped out by this film. Coraline is a stop-motion animated movie that came from the twisted mind of Neil Gaiman, and stop-motion was probably the perfect choice of animation for this film because at times it can look incredibly creepy, and that is exactly what they achieved with this film. It really magnifies the tone set by this film's story really well. There are some truly terrifying sequences in the movie, but the introduction of Coraline's other parents is arguably the most disquieting. Later on in the film, the atmosphere quickly takes a horrific and dark turn, as it's later revealed that the mother ripped out a child's voice box and stitched his lips into a forced rictus grin. In fact, maybe don't show this one to the kids, or any of the films on this list for that matter. This generation can't handle it.
2.
Suspiria. Suspiria may be the most artistically beautiful horror film to come out of Italy, and technically Germany due to the film's setting and filming location. The film is centered around a girl by the name of Susie Banyan, played by Jessica Harper, an American ballet student who transfers to a prestigious dance academy in Germany. Upon her arrival, she quickly realizes that the academy is a front for something far more sinister and supernatural, and many of her classmates disappear over the course of the movie. Even though this film has some pretty gruesome segments, like the barbed wire room scene, it still manages to look beautiful, as the film is presented with vibrant colors during its darker segments, while managing to keep the atmosphere consistently creepy throughout the film. Also, Goblin, who are known for creating the soundtrack to George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead, also score the soundtrack for this film, and it's pretty damn great. Unfortunately, Suspiria is being remade this year starring Dakota Johnson, Chloe Grace Moretz, and Tilda Swinton, and with Harper returning in a secondary role. Hopefully, this one will be one of the rare instances in which the remake of a horror film turns out to be good.
1.
The Thing, 1982. Like many great horror movies that endure over the years, John Carpenter's 1982 reworking of The Thing from Another World, The Thing was actually dismissed by critics as being nothing more than an excessive gross-out schlock film. You can sort of see where they're coming from, but in the decades since its release, it has reached cult status and is recognized as one of the greatest films of the entire horror genre. You probably think we're stretching that statement, but no, this film is universally loved. A jagged sci-fi thriller that continually creates a tense, taut atmosphere of paranoia and doubt. The Thing follows the rugged crew of an isolated Antarctic research facility as they're besieged by an alien presence that can assume the form of anything it touches. This film is well known for its practical effects, which are nothing short of grotesque, in a good way. Next to John Carpenter's Halloween and They Live, The Thing is one of his best works. And that's our list. Did we leave any creepy Halloween movies that you would recommend off the list? Well, let us know in the comments below. Please remember to subscribe and tap the bell button to be notified when new videos are uploaded. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.